Hi, I'm Tim Green, and I'm the author of the new novel for young readers called The Big Time. And this is the library where I do all my writing. And I wanted to talk to you today about some of the different adventurous elements in the story, because this is a site of adventure. One of the questions that people ask me is, what character out of literature inspires me when it comes to adventure? And I always go back to the Count of Monte Cristo. And the Count of Monte Cristo himself is my favorite adventurous character. Of course, he starts out as Edmond Dantes, and then through a series of misfortunes, his life is completely turned on its head, and he finds himself imprisoned. And then Edmond Dantes has to escape from prison, and he goes through this tremendous adventure of how he escapes, and then ultimately has to rebuild his life as the Count of Monte Cristo. And I love the story. I love the twists and turns, and I always try to incorporate those kinds of twists and turns and unexpected events in my own stories, including The Big Time. When you talk about adventure, it's always nice to know what the author's greatest adventure was. And my greatest adventure really was a dream that came true for me, a dream that I had from the time I was very young. I dreamed of playing in the National Football League. And the experience that I had leading up to that, playing as a high school player, and then as a college All-American, and then ultimately being drafted in the National Football League and playing there, was that was a great dream come true and a great adventure for me. And I actually wanted to show you. I'm in my library still, but I wanted to show you some of the pictures of me there. There's me tackling Herschel Walker, and then up here is me playing against the New Orleans Saints at a big scrum there, and then here's me lining up against the Washington Redskins. And then one of my favorites and one of the kids' favorites is me sacking Dan Marino. You can see Dan Marino on the ground there. And in my library here, I have a bunch of pictures from my days in the NFL, and I like to surround myself with that when I'm writing, because I do like to write adventure, and it reminds me of my greatest adventure. Being in there with those guys, playing against guys who I used to watch on TV when I was a kid. So I used to watch Joe Montana and Phil Simms and John Elway. They were players when I was coming up, before I was a player. Then when I became a player myself, to be lining up and battling with offensive linemen and breaking through the line, and sometimes having the opportunity to tackle those guys and knock them to the ground, and the excitement of playing on television and in front of 70,000 screaming fans, it really lived up to the dream that I always had. So playing in the NFL, that was my greatest adventure. I think one of the interesting things about the characters in The Big Time is that they really weren't inspired by characters that I read in books or saw on TV or movies, but they were inspired by the characters in my own life. And not only characters in my life, but characters I know very well, because both Troy and Tate, the main characters in The Big Time, are modeled exactly after my own kids. And my second oldest son and my second daughter are actually Troy and Tate. And when I first started the Football Genius series, I went to my two kids and I said, look, I'm going to make the characters you. You're going to be the same age, because Tate's a little younger. She liked being as old as her older brother. And I said, but these characters are going to be you. They're going to look like you. They're going to act like you. They're going to think like you, the good and the bad. Troy said, what bad? I said, read page 1. It doesn't take you very long to get into trouble. But I had a lot of fun using my kids as the models for the characters in The Big Time. And if a lot of people ask me about Nathan, their big burly buddy. And Nathan is a real character as well. Nathan is one of Troy's best friends, and they do play football together, and he's a lot of fun to be around as well. So the characters in the story, unlike a lot of characters who are inspired by other literary characters, these characters come from my own life. I think if I were setting off on an adventure, the characters from The Big Time who I would most want with me would be actually Tate and Nathan. And when I say that, people say, well, why wouldn't you want Troy? And I think the reason why I wouldn't need Troy is because Troy, my son, who the character's modeled after, he's a lot like me. So I tend to be a lot like Troy. I tend to be pretty emotional, but also pretty determined and maybe stubborn or hard nosed, however you want to describe it. So I would want to have Tate with me. I would want to have Tate with me for her resourcefulness because Tate will think outside the box and she's pretty courageous. Tate's not afraid to take chances and to go places other people aren't willing to go. Now, Nathan, I would want to have on me with my adventure for some laughs because Nathan, when you read The Big Time, is he's a pretty funny character, and a lot of the things that he does, a lot of the crazy things he says and does, actually do come from the real Nathan in real life. Although I have taken some liberties with him, and there are some things that I just make up for fun. But I love his character. I love his sense of humor. And Nathan is also brutally honest. So I think if you're on an adventure, you want to have Tate with you because she's pretty bold. She's pretty courageous. She's gonna go over that bridge, even if it looks like it's not sturdy. And you want to have Nathan with you too because you want to have some laughs along the way. And also you want someone who's always going to tell you the truth, no matter how much it hurts. So finally, I'd like to give you some hints as to what's next for Troy and Tate, because I'm actually working on a book that ties the whole series together. And I pick up the characters from Football Hero, and that's Ty and Thane, and they're modeled after two of my other kids. And those characters are blended with Troy, Tate, and also Tessa. I didn't mention Tessa. She's the mother in The Big Time, and she's modeled after my older daughter, Tessa. And what happens in The Big Time is, we find that Troy, well, I don't want to ruin the ending for you, but where Troy ends up with his father, there's still a bit of a mystery. There's still more adventure to come. And in the next book, which is going to be called Super Bowl Sunday, you're going to get to see Troy and Tate down at the Super Bowl in Miami, and they get connected with Ty Lewis from the Football Hero story, also with Thane, and together they get into some trouble with Ty's old nemesis, the Mafia. So the Mafia, as you know if you read Football Hero, is kind of always out there, always trying to get involved with the National Football League from a gambling standpoint. They're always looking for inside information. And when Troy and Ty end up running into each other, Ty kind of exposes Troy to these bad guys from New York City. And when they find out what Troy's abilities are and how he can influence the outcome of an NFL game, well, that's right up their alley. And then it falls to Troy, Ty, and also Tate to try to get the kids out of the trouble that they get into. So that's what's in store for Troy in the future after The Big Time, and I hope you enjoy both of those stories.